Welcome into another edition of Hornet Nation Unfiltered as we wrap up the month of September here in 2 weeks. Today we're joined by none other than a former student athlete at Alabama State who has worked her way through the ranks of administration and is now serving in a role at Wyoming. And we're thrilled to be joined by China Jude. And China, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us here today and talk to Alabama State.
Well, thank you. I want to say hey to my entire Hornet family.
So when we first talk, everybody always goes and talks about what have you done for me lately. But we like to start things off and say, what did you do for Alabama State and what did Alabama State do for you? Let's talk China back before the volleyball coach and the administrator, China.
Wow. Before the volleyball coaching. So when I was a student athlete, I arrived at Alabama State when I was 16 years old. I think I had just got my driver's license, and I was very fortunate to earn a scholarship there. And my mother's side of the family is from the state of Alabama, outside of Birmingham. So I thought this was a great fit. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, and I didn't like snow, and I wanted to be in warm climate. And so, what a great experience that I had there. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that I connected with a great group of young ladies on the volleyball team, and I believe it was about 8 of us, 8 freshmen, that arrived at the same time, and we were part of the tryout. Some months back, which was about 80 young ladies in the gym trying out for the volleyball team. And at that time, it was transitioning to Division I. So I was very fortunate to be a part of that, one of those first classes during the transition. So majored in broadcast journalism. That's when WVAS was just starting. As a matter of fact, they weren't even open. But I knew that when I went to the top, I believe it was the 5th floor of the library, and when I knew that they were going to open a radio station, I knew I wanted to major in broadcast journalism, and I had the opportunity to cut my teeth there and working in my practicum and just getting my hands dirty in the radio broadcasting field, and went on to complete an internship at Hot 105 and was hired there for 2 positions. So I have to admit, Alabama State is a very special place in my heart. And each time that I return, for whatever the reason, just to hop up unannounced, to being officially invited back by Athletic Director Jennifer Williams, and Deputy Athletic Director Terrence Jones. I tell you what, it just brings back so many wonderful memories. And I try to do my best to stay engaged in some kind of way. And giving back was also participating in a lot of alumni associations at the various states and cities that I've lived in, and was a part of recruiting and open houses and just many of the things that alumni would do from afar.
So no pressure on me that you got a broadcast journalism major. I like to sit back and relax when we do these interviews. Now I feel like I need to get straight up but would it surprise you to know that the journalism department is still on the 5th, broadcast journalism is still on the 5th floor, has a full-fledged TV studio now,
Really?
and VAS, and is his own building right across the street from council?
That is so wonderful. I look forward to returning and just going back to my old stomping grounds. Like I said, it was very new. It was very new, and it was perfect for me because I was learning and growing. The station was learning and growing. They still play jazz contemporary.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was at that time 50,000 watts.
I think it's still about the same.
Yeah.
The only thing I know is I have to put the headset on Saturdays and talk to everybody during football games.
Okay, well.
Other than that, I stay away from everything else I could possibly stay away from.
Well, I tell you what, the ultimate goal was to take Robin Roberts' job. Right. At that time, she was working at ESPN, and I really wanted to have that opportunity. And although she's no longer at ESPN doing big things at Good Morning America, I just knew that to see a woman who looked like me in television really did motivate me and inspired me to wanting to be good at whatever I was pursuing.
Hold that thought, because we're going to come back to that thought about your career path, but just talk about on the court and just your time at Alabama State a little bit, and then we'll move on to other things that we want to talk to you about.
Had in terms of volleyball related?
Volleyball related, and then just whatever your enjoyment of being on campus.
Oh, gosh. I tell you what, I lived to the fullest on campus. We had a wonderful volleyball program. I was recruited by Keith Edwards. At that time, he was also the director of student affairs. And I tell you what, he put up with me. But I have to admit that being young and extremely carefree as a college student escaping from mom and dad, it gave me the opportunity to learn about myself. And Coach Edwards was very supportive, and I had a great great teammates, great roommates, who was also one of the top freshmen. Really just kind of supported me throughout that time. Volleyball was very successful. We were 20 plus wins every single year. We took pride in our success. We worked hard. We made sure that we stuck together as a family to protect each other in so many different ways. We had a lot of academically smart and committed student athletes on the program, which I really appreciated. And it just really gave me the opportunity to grow on and off the court. And then just overall, all of the student athletes, from baseball to basketball to football, I mean, we were very, very close knit. There was a lot of student athletes, but we did move in certain circles, whether it was campus parties or Greek shows, definitely the football games. We had to do the football games. That was one of the things I learned about football. You always had to dress up at the football game because there was a party right after. And then the Turkey Day Classic, that was huge. And I really appreciate that Coach Edwards allowed us to have that campus experience. He felt that was very important. Maybe there was an advantage in him being the director of student activities, but it really did give us the opportunity to get that well-rounded experience on campus.
Do you ever, and this is a question, I haven't had this opportunity to ask this question to somebody who's an administrator at another university right now. Do you ever get that sense of pride when you go and look at what teams have done at your alma mater, especially a sport you played, what volleyball has done here over the last 5 or 6 years?
The sense of pride? Of course.
Yes,
of course. I've worked at 9 institutions. 9. Ranging from historically Black institutions to state institutions to private, predominantly white institutions. So I have a nice range. And of course, being at University of Wyoming, the furthest west that I've ever worked at in FBS football, each one of them are very unique. And I am extremely proud to be affiliated with each one of the institutions. But I tell you what, I stay up with Alabama State. I'm reading the papers. I'm watching the scores. I'm looking at the Facebook pages, the Twitter accounts, everything, because my heart is always with Alabama State University. So anytime that I hear anything about HBCUs and specifically Alabama State or the SWAC, my heart melts when it's something positive, and it makes me excited to know that Alabama State is growing. Alabama State is getting stronger and stronger each time with stronger leadership, such as the current president and Jennifer. And I'm just really excited about the future.
Now, let's talk about your career path. You talked about earlier wanting to be the next Robin Roberts, but you chose a path completely different than getting on air. You decided, instead of being the person behind the desk on ESPN, you decided to lace the shoes up and grab the clipboard and begin your coaching journey in '99 with UNC Wilmington as the head volleyball coach. Just talk about that transition and what made that thought process come about.
Wow, thanks for asking. The interesting part about it is before I got into intercollegiate athletics, of course, I worked in radio and television, and I continued to talk about it, but I really felt that I wanted to prove that whatever my theories or philosophies or strategies, I felt that I could do it. And so, as a matter of fact, before I became the head women's volleyball coach at UNC Wilmington, I was the assistant volleyball coach at Rollins College outside of Orlando. And at that time, I was working with the sheriff's office as the executive director of the police athletic league. So I did have a life before intercollegiate athletics. And after one season of turning a volleyball program around, UNC Wilmington contacted me and offered me my first full-time head coach position. And so I stayed there with a change of athletic director leadership. I stayed there about 2 years and then moved on to Coppin State as a volleyball coach, head volleyball coach. And then at that point, I started dabbling back into administration. And so I've worked in a couple of other coaching positions, but there was always that combination of administration and coaching. And so it just got to the point that I realized that although my true love and passion is volleyball, because that's the sport that, paid for my education, that's the sport that helped me network and get to learn a lot of people, I knew that I was much stronger in administration and had to make a difficult decision to depart coaching and took a full-time job as a director of athletics at China University, which was my first AD position. And of course, anytime that I receive an administration offer, I'm always asked the question, are you going to coach? And no, I've already done that. And I never looked back after that. And I love every second of it. It gives me the opportunity to impact more student athletes. Because in coaching, you're only 12 to 15 young ladies. So when you're an administrator, you're covering, and in this case in Wyoming, 420 athletes plus an entire athletic staff of 150 people. So I have a much wider net to cast, and I felt that it made it a much better fit for me.
And that was my next question. You coach at UNC Wilmington, you go to Coppin State, then you get back into coaching, dabble a little bit at West Florida and the District of Columbia. Then you take the big chair at Cheney. Not only at Cheney, but then you move on to Queens College in New York as the assistant VP and director of athletics there. Just the transition just from that coaching to being an administrator, and not just administrator, but the lead administrator. Mm-hmm. You go from, like you said, you go from 15 to 20 student athletes to the entire body of student athletes. How difficult was that transition for you? And is it one of those that if you had to go back and look at it again, would you have done it sooner, or was the path exactly how you wanted it?
No, actually, I think it was right on time. What made it a bit disappointing in that transition from a coach / administrator to 100% administration, it was the change of leadership at University of District of Columbia. New president. The new president wanted his own staff, leadership, and things changed. So, and it was kind of interesting because I was let go, and 7 days later, I was named the athletic director at Cheney University. What made it interesting within those 7 days, because of course I knew some alum at Cheney University, the new president at Cheney University was a dean during the same time when I was at University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And so she thought she knew me. I don't recall us crossing paths. It's not a lot of people of color at UNC Wilmington at that time, but there was a connection. She was also from Chicago. Our birthday is the same day. I mean, it just seemed like things lined up so well. But I have to admit, I was nervous that very first job because I knew that no matter what the decisions were, the buck stopped with me.
Right.
There was no one else that I can go to, but the president, the university president, Dr. Michelle Howard Vital, who's no longer with us, she said, listen, I don't know about athletics, and that's why I hired you. I have the confidence in you running this program, and fortunately with some compliance experience that I had when I was at Coppin State, that was the full charge to make sure that we were in compliance because I inherited the department on a 3-year probation. So yeah, it was a bit scary in the beginning, but I utilized my instincts and when you use your instincts, your survival skills and your integrity and your ethics, it just kind of falls in place. And I was very fortunate to have a great alumni base who were supporting me throughout the entire 3.5 years I was there. And it really did work out well. Of course, there was bumps in the road. What else is new? Whenever you're inheriting departments that needed to be rebuilt. But I was very fortunate to work with some very good people and still stay in contact with some wonderful former student athletes there who still reach out to me. And that feels pretty good because I felt that I've made some kind of impact. Unfortunately, going through a search firm, Queens College comes to calling, which is from 1,500 students to now 20,000 students in New York City. So that was a much bigger, even though they were both Division II, but it was a much bigger platform. Right. And more resources, of course. And I just rolled up my sleeve and kept the same work ethic and integrity and values that I've had way before I got into athletics, and we just got to working at Queens College.
Now, if I know you as an athletic director like I know mine, I know these numbers. There's going to be a set of numbers I'm going to give you at the end that I know mean more to you than what I'm going to tell you at the beginning. 12 postseason bursts, 13 head coaches, conference coach of the year award winners, 2 regional coaches of the year, 200 student athletes earning all conference, all region, and all American honors. But your student athletes while you were there achieved a 4-year graduation average of 75%, 91% retention rate, and earned a combined 3.0 grade point average every semester.
That's the part that I'm most proud of. I mean,
that's why I say that part's the last.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm all about championships. We won 7 conference championships. We were in Elite 8 women's basketball program in 2017, and I loved every second of it. I mean, I just stopped ordering rings, because there was just too many of them. But to know that these student athletes studied hard, and it was academically challenging at that institution, yet you had to have that 1,200 SAT. The grade point average is to get in Queens College is very competitive, and really they did not make too many adjustments just because they were student athletes. So we did get elite academically focused students, but we also got elite athletes too. And that's one of the things that I will always cherish during my time at Queens College. And even here at University of Wyoming, I still have those same expectations for our student athletes.
Before we talk about 2 things that I really wanted to talk to you about, one I reached out to you about, one you told me about. I just want to read this for the people at home so they understand where you are and what you do right now. You oversee sports medicine, sports performance, and if anything needs to be added, tell me, because I'm reading this straight off of your bio. Nutritionist, athletic training table, fueling stations, strategic planning, gender equity, and diversity inclusion initiatives, as well as sport oversight of volleyball and soccer. As a senior women's administrator, you also represent the department on the Mountain West Conference Nominating Committee, and serve as a sport liaison to women's soccer. Since you arrived at Wyoming, you've created strategies on addressing sexual assault and violence, served as chair of the University-wide Black 14 Commemoration Week, successfully launched a barbershop and strengthened the department's diversity, inclusion, recruitment, and professional development programming. And you serve on the NCAA Division I Soccer Committee and president of the Minority Opportunities Athletics Association. For the people at home that don't know, that's MOA. So whenever you hear things MOA, NACTA, NACMA, MOA is the Minority Opportunities Athletics Association. My question is, you just threw out the 400 plus student athletes. Where do you have the time to even consider doing all of this?
And plus now I'm the chair of the Senior Women Administrators for the conference.
So add that on top of everything.
Yeah, on top of a couple of other things too. I think it's, well, thank you for reading that bio. You know, it's kind of interesting when I hear that. I'm like, wow, when do I find this the time? But I am very fortunate that people trust me. Mm-hmm. I'm very fortunate. And I'm even more fortunate to have the opportunity to have the kids trust me. Just last night, I was on a Zoom call with our student athlete orientation class, teaching them about interviewing skills and the attire you wear for interviewing. And of course, I always try to share a little bit of my personal story throughout that process. But it's all about time management. It's all about making sure that I prioritize the priority, which are the students. I also am a part of overseeing the return, the phasing in of students coming back on campus, and with all the testing, the COVID-19 testing. And so it's kind of a natural fit, especially when I'm overseeing a lot of departments, sports medicine, sports performance. I hired a licensed counselor because all of those people are part of my team. Right. So it kind of fits in a little bit easily together, but I'm having a great time learning and growing.
So you've gotten two major awards. We'll start with the first one, 2019, right. The Women Leaders in College Sports Nell Jackson Administrator of the Year Award. And you mentioned Jennifer's name. She won an award a couple of years ago as well from Women Leaders. Yeah. Just what does that mean for you to be recognized among your peers and among the women leaders in college sports?
I have so much respect for that organization. Prior to it being called Women Leaders in College Sports, it was called NACWA, which was the National Association of Collegiate Women Athletic Administrators, something like that. And so to see that organization evolve and grow under Patty Phillips, the CEO, and being a part of many of those initiatives really does make a significant difference. The Nell Jackson Award is something very special because Nell Jackson was a former coach and professor, and she championed for diversity and inclusion initiatives and programming on a college campus. And that is something that I am very passionate about, not for the sake of being passionate because someone pays me to do these things. When I was a coach, I was passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion, way before it was even called diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so utilizing those experiences I had since 1990 when I worked for the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith in Chicago. And to grow and learn in the diversity, equity, inclusion space and incorporate that within higher education and college sports. Oh, this is great. It's absolutely great. So it was an honor to be named the Nell Jackson Award recipient, and definitely stand on shoulders for all of those pioneers who have been fighting for equity way before NACLA even started.
And before we talk about the next award, because it kind of ties in with both, you have an opportunity to, as a female in college athletics, to be able to stand on the shoulders of those pioneers and fight for diversity and inclusion. What can you tell the young female that may want to become an administrator that may be a high school junior, high school senior, or maybe even a college junior, college senior, what would it take for them to get the opportunity or to pursue the opportunity like you have gotten? And it's not because it was handed to you, because of your work ethic and what you've done.
Well, I have a couple of tips. Number one, have fun throughout the journey, wherever that journey takes you. And the journey will take young people in so many different directions. I think one of the things that's very concerning is that we force people to lock in into one particular job and one particular major. And then at times we can get frustrated if they're changing their major, or they say, hey, I don't know what I want to do. That's okay. This is my fourth career, my fourth one. So that's okay to go through the journey, and we shouldn't pressure ourselves, and we shouldn't pressure other people to force themselves or lock themselves in a particular box. So that's the first thing. In terms of the young women, understand that there are going to be a lot of spikes in the road, and there are going to be entities, individuals, groups, and environments who are going to try to deflate the vision, deflate your dream, speak about why it can't work, why it shouldn't work, or what they need to do based upon somebody else's perspective. And I don't think that that's very fair. You find your own journey in your own way. And so even though it may be deflated from time to time, always have your spare tire. Always have your spare tire, and be prepared to patch it back up again and inflate it back up and just keep the wheels moving. And that's very important.
And I hated to throw you that curveball, because I know we talked earlier and I told you what I was and was probably going to stay away from. But it just seems like, when the same conversations that I have with Jennifer, we have the same conversations. And it just seems like different people attack at different times. And now it has switched to women in sports.
Yes.
And I hate that I even ask you this, because I know you wanted to be the Robin Roberts on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
But it seems like now the attacks are going towards the women in sports that are in broadcasting. They attack because of their attire. They attack them because they're female. And I'll be the first to say it. Some of my best friends are colleagues that are females that cover sports. Maria Martin, that's in Atlanta now.
Yeah.
And you see it, and you just, as for me, you just don't know what to say, because you don't want to get the fire going even more.
Yeah.
But they know you're there for them. What is something maybe that you can tell the professionals are already in it how to fight it off?
You got to continue to keep your head up, and make sure that you surround yourself with those individuals who are championing for you and your cause. Sometimes we have to actually segregate ourselves from the haters, from those who are deflating your goals and vision. And throughout my many travels of my many states, I know who are those individuals who have my back. Now, they don't always have to agree with every decision I make, but when the decision is made, are they going to support me? And that's all I've ever wanted from my friends, those that small, close-knit people who are considered my friends. And then everyone else, they just stay afar as acquaintances, or maybe I don't engage them on a regular basis. When I made the decision to go into the Navy, and I was there at Alabama State, I remember I did not have a great report card. I did not tell anybody. I didn't. I worked out on my own. I went to Maxwell Air Force Base to go into their gym. I did everything in private. And then when I met the weight requirements, signed all the paper, I did the swearing in, I did the whole thing. That's when I communicated. I didn't even tell my own coach that. I told everybody after, including my own mother. including my own mother, told no one. That was the biggest secret I kept within those 3 months. I did that because I knew that there were people who were going to stop me for whatever their own personal agendas are. They were going to stop me. And so at that particular time, I did what I had to do. Of course, I go into the military. I return, and I get on the dean's list. I earned my scholarship back. I was more mature. So sometimes a person will have to be by themselves in making some of those passionate decisions without being distracted or deterred by other people. So that's what I say. Be close to the ones that you're close with, that you trust, but sometimes you're going to have to stand alone.
Before I ask you about the award, which I just promised I would ask you 2 questions ago, you bring up something about doing the workout and keeping it a secret about joining the military. Family has a rich history of being in the military. How much does that structure help? You served, your son served, and your dad served.
Wow.
Just talk about that structure and how that affects you, and still today, because it doesn't just leave your system after you're out of it. It stays with you. And I've known people who've retired for 30 years, and they have a structured environment that they live by every day.
It is your lifestyle. It is your world. I have been affiliated with military environments my entire life. And I was even at 10 years old, I was in an all-girl Navy drill team that won a world championship. And I was in ROTC. I knew that this was a route I was going to go. Fortunately, I got the scholarship. And then when I got that bad report card, I just knew that there was only one thing that was going to put me back in a disciplined environment. And that's where the military came in at. So my entire world to this very day is still structured in a way that I think of the military. Even when I was at China University, I was offered to go back to OCS to be commissioned in it. And then Queens College called, so I had to choose between being a second lieutenant or assistant vice president. I couldn't do both. So, and I just thought that my military calling had passed. So that military structure is a lifestyle. It's a calling. It's a way of responding in my everyday life and the decisions that I make, and even how I lead teams. Right. Because that's very important. I'm continuously leading teams in the athletics world. And, with my staff in sports medicine, my staff in strength conditioning, all across the board. And I lead in a very similar way. It is very engaging. We work together in making sure that our kids are staying COVID-free, making sure things are structured, where students are feeling safe and parents are feeling comfortable that we're taking care of our business. So this is part of my life. It will always be within me.
So the major thing for the folks at home that are listening to this is something that I didn't know about, that I was handed this yesterday before the interview, and I'm glad I was, and I will be the first to apologize to say that I didn't know about it, especially being an alum. You have received one of the biggest awards you could probably receive from the Sports Business Journal, and that's to be called a game changer, Women in Sports Business. And this is the 10th anniversary, so it makes it even bigger. People look at the first one, then they look at 10, then they look at 25, then they look at 30, and it goes on from there. But you're going to be in the 10th annual version of the Game Changers Women in Sports Business. You're actually going to be featured in October 19th issue in detail. And then October 27th, a virtual conference will be held. We will be officially giving your award. What does this mean to you? And I say this because you just made mention of you had to make a decision of going back to the military and being commissioned or becoming an athletic director. Well, you chose the second, and all your student athletes, I'm sure, are excited that you chose the second, and now you get this award because of that.
I have to admit, it's a very humbling experience because the Sports Business Journal, which is a very
Mm-hmm.
reputable journal when it comes to sports and business, they recognized all of the passion and commitment that I had in diversity, equity, and inclusion. It kind of got me thinking about, remember when, and there's no way that I'm on that level of Michael Jordan, but remember when he won the championship and he hugged that trophy and he
Mm-hmm.
cried? And I continue to watch that video, and it really resonates with me when you're winning those type of championships and all the hard work, the sacrifice, the naysayers. It's just so much you had to go through to get to that particular championship. And there's, of course, I didn't cry when I heard I got this award, but I felt there was something that I felt inside when I was contacted by them, because I was told, when you talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and this is pre-George Floyd, that this is a taboo subject. Do not talk about race. If you talk about race, you will not get a job. People will think you're militant. You will make people feel uncomfortable. And I always said, if I cannot talk about race in the world of sports, I will go back to radio and television, and I will have a microphone, and it will be bigger. It will be bigger. So I received a lot of pushback from my colleagues, friends, family, the industry. And I had to continue to have these conversations in a lot of different ways. So it didn't seem like I was militant. It didn't seem like that I was fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And to receive this recognition made me feel that I didn't have to change who I was. I got to finally stay true to me. And now, in light of George Floyd and all of these other travesties that are going on around the country with police brutality, issues with Maria Taylor, what she's going through with that announcer commenting about her clothing and things like that, I just felt that I was not wrong. I was not wrong, and I need to continue to use my voice. So I really appreciate the athletic administrator who nominated me for this award, the Sports Business Journal, for recognizing all of our hard work through MOA and all the other groups that I'm working with. I have my own Women of Color Athletic Directors Network group that I created, which is 5 years old. Jennifer has attended a couple of those meetings. I just feel that we have so much more work to do.
And I think that's what I was going to say is you talked about standing on the shoulders of the pioneers. It's people like me that kind of, and I hate to say it this way, but when you say the words really never paid attention, and I've been in this for 18, 20 years now, and it took 2 years ago for me to realize, and it was the second year I was at Alabama State, that now we stand on the shoulders of pioneers like you that have stood on the other shoulders of the other pioneers to fight for what we believe is right, and that is to be diverse and inclusive of everybody. And I think I made the comment this morning, as a matter of fact, to an individual, to another parent, and told them the discussions that are had at the end of basketball practice, that we shouldn't be having those discussions. We shouldn't have to tell young Black men and women, be careful, do what you've got to do. Yes, sir, no, sir. That's a common thing. That's not something that has just happened. That's something that should be For me, and this is a white male that doesn't look like you or look like our head coach or look like any of our athletes. We have to understand that we have to take a stand and stand beside you, not in front of you, not behind you, but stand side by side for this to work and for things to get to where they are and get the bad seeds out. And it's because of people like you that have fought for this through athletics that have that platform that now we realize, I think we all realize we have a platform we can use now.
We do. And we don't have to always take a bullhorn to make it work. The fact, first recognizing it, acknowledging that there is something happening. And even with you being a white male, having your particular privilege, I mean, having the opportunity for you to go into a HBCU and to be a part of championing for a lot of the changes that even just the stigma of HBCUs are trying to go through. I am a proud graduate of Alabama State University. A lot of people are surprised that I'm an HBCU graduate, and I'm shocked. I'm like, why would that be a surprise? There are a lot of dynamic, powerful alum from that, not only that, Alabama State, but all of the HBCUs. So you better recognize. But we need to make sure that all of us are playing our part in addressing the travesties that are going on. And also in the world of sports, just the issues of lack of minority ownership, limited women of color who are athletic directors, which there are only 32 out of 1,100 NCAA institutions, and Jennifer Williams is one of them. I mean, we have to continuously have these kind of conversations, from politics to business to education to medicine. We have to play our part, but the best first step, especially for young people, vote.
And that's the big thing. And I think that's what I was gonna hit on that topic for you a little bit. Is it's right around the corner, and teams and athletic departments have become big proponents of getting teams to register to vote. I know our volleyball team is completely registered to vote, as some of our other teams are, and they're getting to that point. I heard our golf coach tell this 2 teams that they needed to get registered to vote once they got here and on campus. So our coaches now understand the importance of being registered to vote and getting your vote heard, because if you don't vote, your voice almost doesn't get heard.
It's true. And we also have to keep in mind, if the time permits, so even if we can volunteer in some type of way on that day, whether it's giving rides to those individuals who do not have transportation to the polls, whether it's to encourage people to vote early. Even I was sitting there thinking about, how can we take out lawn chairs and bottled water for those individuals who are standing in long lines? And so people could rest, because that's where the struggle comes in at, when employers are not allowing their staff members to take that day off to vote. No one said, Wyoming is different. Wyoming, small poll stations, the entire state is about 500,000 people. Laramie, Wyoming, where the university is located, is only 30,000 people. So it's going to be pretty quick. And although that this is a red state and I'm an independent voter, really for the most part, we already know which way this is going to go in this state, but I'm going to still vote. I still need to vote, even though it may sway in a different way. But I think that there's just so many different ways. So if our student athletes can be a part of being poll workers or helping out in some other ways on top of putting their vote in, it really can make a significant difference. This is one, and the cliche is, this is the most important election of our lives. Actually, this is the most important election of our lives. Vote until your life depends on it.
And I think that's what people need to understand. You hear it said every year. It really is important. And obviously, Alabama is a Republican state. But at the end of the day, the more people that can get out and vote, you never know what could happen. And anybody listening to this, anybody watching this, we're not telling you who to vote for. We're not telling you what to do. We're just telling you to go vote. Let your voice be heard. Don't let John Lewis's work.
Yeah.
And I bring his name up, but C.T. Vivian, Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph David Abernathy, all have ties to Alabama State. Don't let their work go undone.
Yeah.
Don't let what they did for so many years go undone, especially this year. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring this topic up because we have one of Wyoming's former student athletes here, which means you're going to be even more excited to keep up with Alabama State. Trayshawn decided to bring his talents to Alabama State.
Yes.
Let's talk about, the reason I bring it up is we're in a move where we tell all of our kids now that there are more eyes on HBCUs than have ever been before. And Trace is a 3.5, 4-star guy coming out of high school, goes to Wyoming, plays lights out at Wyoming, transfers, and then ends up here. Just talk about that and just how excited you are to be. And I know you want him back there so bad because he'll be right there with you. But just because he's now at your alma mater, what does that mean to you?
Yeah,
and he could have chose anywhere.
He could have chosen any institution. I remember meeting Trace on his official visit, and I tell you what. I mean, right then and there, we just connected. I mean, I did not want him to leave my office. I was enjoying our conversation so much. I spent time in Baltimore at Coppin State. He spent time in Baltimore also. We knew some of those same areas. I listened to his journey, and my heart went out to him, extremely articulate, extremely thoughtful, knows what he is passionate about. We have had conversations about business, religion, education, community, family. And so throughout that year of being here in Wyoming, of course, he's in my office. He's dropping knowledge on me. I'm dropping knowledge on him. We're just, it's kind of like a jam session, and so I really appreciated him because he really did not only kept me up to date on how young people thought, but it really gave me so much hope on what our younger generation is going to be planning and thinking about moving forward. So when he came into my office that final time to tell me that he's going to be departing, my heart dropped. My heart dropped because I connect with a lot of kids. And that's the tough part when you're working in higher education. There are so many student athletes that you become so fond of, and you just see them as your little babies. They're like yours. And it just, my heart dropped. And we talked a little bit about those next steps. What does that look like? And so, of course, when he put the announcement out that he was attending Alabama State, I just felt like, oh, well, he didn't go anywhere. He just went to my house. He went to my home. This is perfect. And I did tell him, I said, listen, I'll be back. If I have to buy season tickets and not be at every game, but at least I got a ticket, I will be back because I must see him. So we still stay in contact with each other via social media, and he is going to be perfect for the Hornet family. He's a smart guy. He knows what he wants, and I just hope that the Hornet family just embrace him. Please embrace him from me until I get there. And if he acts crazy, just let me know. I'll take care of that.
I'll make sure I show him this clip and tell him he needs to make sure he pays attention to it. I may just walk into practice with him and show it to him tomorrow, either after practice or before.
Tell him Miss China don't play. He know Miss China don't play.
But from former student athlete at Alabama State, volleyball player to the military, to assistant volleyball coach, head volleyball coach, administrator, lead administrator, 2019 Women Leaders in College Sports Nell Jackson Administrator of the Year, game changer in SBJ, to senior associate AD, SWA at Wyoming. Folks, that's China Jude, one of Alabama State's best and brightest to ever walk through the doors at the university. China, we thank you for taking time out of your day, because we know, especially these days, are very trying to get some time.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Give me that Alabama State spirit. Give me that Alabama State spirit. It's good enough for me.
And that's China Jude, everybody. China, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with another special guest here on Hornet Nation Unfiltered. Until then, we'll talk to you later. You've been listening to Hornet Nation Unfiltered. We'll be back next week with another special guest from Alabama State's past. Until next time.